stand before you today with one unmistakable message about Operation Epic Fury. America is winning. This was never meant to be a fair fight. The Iranian Air Force is no more, built for 1996, destroyed in 2026. The Iranian Navy rests at the bottom of the Persian Gulf.
The Abraham Lincoln was moving through the Strait of Hormuz when the world briefly allowed itself to believe the crisis might finally be over. The massive carrier cut through calm waters with quiet authority, its flight deck loaded with F-35 stealth jets and support aircraft, every crew member locked in a state of high alert. For the first time in weeks, clearance had been granted for a commercial oil tanker to attempt passage through the strait. The vessel, a large ship flying a neutral flag, moved cautiously forward under the observation of international monitors. Its transit was intended to mark the beginning of restored shipping operations. Sailors aboard the Abraham Lincoln watched from the deck as the tanker's outline shrank into the distance, a fragile signal that the waterway might reopen without further violence. That hope lasted only minutes. Developments out of Lebanon triggered an immediate and unexpected shift in Iranian posture. In direct response to escalating regional tensions, Iranian forces reversed their position and sealed the strait once again. Coastal radar installations powered up. Missile batteries along the shoreline were brought to active readiness. Iranian naval vessels repositioned themselves across the shipping lane. The tanker that had just begun its passage was ordered to reverse course, its captain broadcasting urgent distress calls as fast patrol boats moved to intercept. The ship had no choice but to comply. Aboard the Abraham Lincoln, the atmosphere shifted in an instant, from cautious relief to sharp operational focus. Alarms rang out across the carrier. Flight deck personnel moved with urgent precision. The strait was closed once more, and the Lincoln now sat directly in the path of a renewed and active Iranian threat. Iranian commanders had made their intentions unmistakable. Intelligence feeds showed missile systems being brought online, patrol craft maneuvering into attack positions, and fast assault vessels accelerating toward the carrier's location. The Abraham Lincoln, one of the most powerful symbols of naval strength on the planet, had become the primary target. Every sailor aboard understood exactly what that meant. The carrier was not simply a warship. It was a floating airfield housing hundreds of aircraft and thousands of personnel. A successful strike against it would send shockwaves across the entire region and far beyond. The United States Navy did not wait for the first missile to be fired. In a move that caught Iranian forces completely off guard, the Navy deployed a weapon system whose existence had never been officially confirmed. From one of the destroyers operating in the carrier's escort formation, a single classified missile launched from a vertical strike cell and accelerated to hypersonic velocity. Its guidance architecture relied on technology so advanced that even the crew members responsible for firing it had only partial understanding of its full capabilities. The weapon flew low over the water, threading through every radar layer Iran had positioned along the coastline. Within seconds, it found its mark, the lead Iranian command vessel coordinating the assault on the Lincoln. The detonation was massive and precise. It delivered an unmistakable message. The United States held capabilities that extended well beyond anything in the public domain. That single strike was only the opening move. Fighter aircraft immediately began launching from the Abraham Lincoln's flight deck. F-35 stealth jets rolled forward in rapid sequence, engines roaring as each aircraft accelerated down the angled deck and climbed into the sky. One after another, the angular jets formed up into coordinated strike packages. Pilots received targeting data fed directly from the carrier's combat management systems and from surveillance drones operating at altitude above the engagement area. The F-35s carried precision-guided munitions selected specifically for anti-ship and coastal strike operations. Their orders were direct: locate and destroy the Iranian naval forces that had closed the strait and moved to threaten the Abraham Lincoln. The F-35s executed with lethal efficiency. They approached Iranian naval formations at low altitude, their stealth characteristics rendering them nearly invisible to enemy tracking systems. Upon reaching effective range, they released their weapons in rapid succession. Missiles streaked toward Iranian patrol boats, missile corvettes, and support vessels across the engagement area. Explosions tore across the water as vessel after vessel absorbed direct hits. Iranian crews had almost no time to respond. One ship after another erupted in flames, secondary detonations ripping through ammunition storage and fuel systems as fires spread across decks. The strikes did not stop with the naval vessels. The F-35s pressed on to hit the coastal support infrastructure, sustaining the Iranian naval operation, fuel depots, ammunition transfer points, and communications nodes that kept the blockade force supplied and coordinated. Bridge structures used for rapid troop movement were struck and collapsed. Radar installations that had been tracking the Abraham Lincoln were eliminated in precise, coordinated attacks. The pilots operated with exact timing, using real-time intelligence from the carrier to strike each target the moment conditions were optimal. From the decks of the Abraham Lincoln and its escort vessels, the scene unfolding on the horizon was extraordinary. Sailors watched as the darkened waterway lit up with the glow of multiple simultaneous explosions. The Iranian naval presence that had operated with confidence only hours before was being taken apart piece by piece. Vessels that attempted to maneuver or return fire were immediately met with follow-on strikes. The carrier's air wing maintained unrelenting pressure, launching continuous waves of aircraft to ensure no Iranian unit could regroup or mount any form of counterstrike against the Lincoln. The entire engagement moved with remarkable speed. The classified weapon had delivered the initial shock that disrupted Iranian command and coordination. The F-35s then delivered the sustained, precise firepower that converted that shock into a decisive and overwhelming outcome. Iranian naval forces that had closed the strait just hours earlier were now burning, sinking, or retreating toward safer waters. The IRGC Navy, which had positioned itself as a dominant threat to regional shipping, had been effectively neutralized in a single concentrated response. The Strait of Hormuz was not yet fully open, but the immediate threat had been removed. The tanker that had been turned back earlier received fresh clearance to proceed. Additional vessels waiting offshore began repositioning, preparing to test the reopened corridor under the protection of American naval power. The Abraham Lincoln held its position, its flight deck still active with returning and launching aircraft, anchoring the American presence in the strait. The operation had delivered its message clearly. When Iran moved to close the strait again in response to the Lebanon situation, the United States answered with technology and execution that left no effective counter available. The weapon that should not exist created the opening. The F-35s from the Abraham Lincoln closed it decisively. The IRGC Navy had absorbed a blow it would not recover from quickly. The broader situation remained active. Planning continued for follow-on operations should Iran attempt to reimpose any form of closure. The Abraham Lincoln and its full air wing remained at readiness, a constant and visible reminder that the United States would not permit any nation to strangle one of the world's most consequential energy corridors. The waters of Hormuz were opening again. The pressure had worked, and American forces would remain in position to ensure it stayed that way.